Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending August 19th. We have a big show tonight as we have William Bernanke with us from CG Analytics. And he will be talking about NFL preseason football, and we're going to take a look at the futures market so far, see where the action's at. We're going to have another edition of Handicappers Corner. This week we're going to preview the AFC East and the AFC South. We've got Dave Cokin and Ralph Michaels in studio with me tonight. Behind the controls, we've got Mark Seidel. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo. Let's get this party started and bring in William. Thanks for joining the show. It's football time, getting a little busy for you guys down there at CG, huh?
Oh, yeah, big time. You know, preseason and seeing so much more action than in the past on the futures markets. And we have a few more that we hadn't had in the past.
I want to tell all of our followers that they can follow you on Twitter. You are a great follow, and you're at the Moneyline Guy on Twitter. You'll give a lot of information on there. And this season, you know, one of the things we're going to do for our listeners is we're going to have take them behind the counter. You know, guys that aren't in Vegas, they're always intrigued in knowing where the sharp action's at, where the squares are at, and just where you guys have liability. And unfortunately, sometimes during the season, William, I know it's not the favorite question of bookmakers, but we like to ask whenever there's those rare games where you guys take it on the chin. For some reason, our listeners love to hear those stories.
Yeah, and it happens, you know, happens more times than we like. You know, it's just the nature of the beast.
Well, I want to ask you something because, you know, we've known each other for a little while.
Yep.
And what is there a difference in your approach? Obviously, when you're on one side of the window or the other, it's two different types of business. But when you were just betting and not booking, how much attention did you pay to what the action was like on particular games, particularly in football, as opposed to now when you're on the other side of the counter and kind of have to pay attention to it?
Yeah, well, certainly when I was betting on games, I would pay attention to where lines would move more or less, not necessarily where money was going, but more or less where lines were moving. You know, obviously it's a different animal of baseball than in football.
Right.
You know, we're dealing with just wins and losses and point spreads. But now being on the other side of the counter, it is, tendencies more so. You know, you're looking at masses as opposed to just individual. So it is a different mindset, and trying to get into the head of what people are doing on the outside, and certainly paying attention more now to shows like Hard Knocks and First Take and what they're talking about, and that does affect the betting where ordinarily I wouldn't have listened to that.
Well, we've got 1 week in of the NFL preseason. How did the action go that week? How did it fare for the house, and what was the handle like?
Pretty good handle in a couple of our better results, and I'm sure this might have been you've been told this by other bookmakers, but the Panthers and Bucks covering and winning outright were good results, and the losses were the Ravens and the 49ers on that incredible finish there. And I thought the Browns would have been a worse result, but actually it wasn't so bad. It was a kind of a 50-50 kind of game there.
So there's a game tonight in, without saying who, a lot of us might like a side of this game, but the public is, the bettors are just bombing the Packers. Pittsburgh's got some guys that are sitting, and the Packers are getting a lot of play tonight. Mm-hmm. In comparison to a regular season game, how much less is the liability, even though you're going to have what I would think would be a whopping percentage of tickets on Green Bay tonight?
Yeah, I would, again, compare this game to like right now, at least, a mid to high-level baseball game.
Okay.
And as far as handle and liability, again, it's not as one-sided as for us, at least, as you might think. Point spread-wise, definitely we need the Steelers, but we've taken some money line bets on the Steelers to offset that. So looks like a Steelers cover would be good, and a Packers win would be ideal.
Do you get higher variances in regular season games or preseason games as far as percentage of ticket bets or percentage of money on one team?
Can you repeat the question as far as
the variance of percentages? So, you have 70% of people betting Green Bay, 30% betting Pittsburgh. Are those variances bigger in the preseason or in the regular season?
I would say they're bigger in the preseason because you have a different clientele in the preseason, as you probably know already. The respected money shows up first and foremost in preseason games. The regular season, it's just everything. Every type of dollar you can imagine.
And that is a great comment, because whenever you hear, especially on TV, with these guys who think they know what they're talking about and they don't, and they'll say, I don't know how anybody can bet on a preseason game. You just spelled it out. Some of your sharpest and most respected bettors are actually more liable to come in with convincing wagers in the preseason as opposed to the regular season, because they're getting information in terms of game planning that they can't get in a regular season game.
Absolutely, Dave. And they're able to beat these closing lines in the preseason by multiple points, where in the regular season that's just very hard to do.
Well, in preseason games like this, how quick are you to move a line? Do you wait on money to move it, or when you know that there's an announcement, because everybody's trying to gather the same information? They want to know what guys are playing and for how long. And when somebody makes an announcement, and that information usually comes from a beat writer that just interviewed a coach and says that, hey, Rodgers is going to play this week, Roethlisberger's not, boom. Do you guys move as soon as you get that kind of information, basically moving it on air, knowing what's coming, or do you wait till you see some of it come in and have the realization of it?
Well, it certainly depends on what player we're talking about, but let's just say, Rodgers, for example, let's say in week 3, again, just hypothetically, either dress rehearsal week, and let's say out of the blue, Rodgers wasn't going to play at all. That would be something we'd move right away to anticipate the money coming in on the other end, where if it was a marginal quarterback that maybe the backup is just as good or close to that level, then maybe wait to see what respective money comes in, since we're not taking huge bets anyway, and then kind of go off of that.
Moving on to the Friday and Saturday action that we've got going, since we're taping on Thursday, we'll let the rest of the Thursday night games go. Where have you seen some sharp money or public money even coming in on any of the weekend games?
Yeah, there's two here that stick out.
I'll bet I know one of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys definitely know. Kansas City.
Yeah.
And that just, in fact, that moved right before you guys called. It went from 3, Atlanta -3. Now they're still -1, but that's going to probably go to pick 'em or even cross over. 90% of account money's on the Chiefs there, so some respected money continues to bet them. The other games are just Giants, Detroit is even action. Miami, Carolina really even right now. And the Browns.
Yeah, of course.
1.5 times more Browns money on account, but that line has not moved too much, just 3.5. Actually, it's moved the opposite of 3.5 to 3, which I think is just based on what the market is at some other books. So, but yeah, I think that line could go down too. Just like last week, can kind of come down to 2.
Is that going to be? And we don't see a lot of these in the preseason. But is that a game that could end up being a pros versus Joes? Because I look, the amateurs are going to bet Cleveland. They're just going to bet them. And I really thought, boy, that number might go up. I'm not playing the game myself, but I thought that number might go up, and it's not, which indicates to me somebody whose money you respect or opinion you respect is betting on the Bills.
Yeah, because of I think you're going to see some Bills money come in from both both angles tomorrow.
Okay.
Because of what Jalen Ramsey said about Josh Allen. People listen to that, and they think maybe when he plays, he'll have something to prove, and maybe the team does. So that could be some angle that bettors are playing here, and certainly it's a nationally televised game, so that'll already draw some more handle to the game. It's tough to say where this line will go. It could go to Cleveland 4, go to Buffalo 2, just based on those two factors.
The beauty of preseason, the Bills-Browns is going to be the game of the week.
All 4 Browns games are on national TV, and that one New England game is. How much more money do you get on an ESPN nationally televised game versus a regular preseason game?
Oh, the TV games get about 2 times more money, double the money there.
Well, preseason is, the focus right now, but the sharp bettors have been banging along with the season win totals and, futures. Do you guys have any liabilities at CG that you could tell us about?
Yeah, there was a couple that stood out, and there were there's so much going on in the futures market right now. It was kind of hard to dissect which is the biggest liabilities, because some are in the same ballpark. But the couple here that really stood out to me as far as who was betting them, the Bills under 6.5. They're now under 6.5, minus 225, and we took some low four-figure bets on the Bills under 6.5 at minus 195 and at minus 210, so that just kept it moving there. The Seahawks under 8.5, minus 200. A couple of low four-figure bets on that under. It's now 210 to the under, minus 210. And the Raiders, some local bettors here, taking some shots. And we took actually a low five-figure bet on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl at 25-1. That's a big liability right there. It's currently 20-1. And, of course, the Browns, we had this one here. It's actually a pretty decent situation for this bettor. Browns over 5, minus 200, low four-figure bet, and they went to miss the playoffs at minus 500 in the same low four-figure bet range.
Do you think the Raider bet anything there? Is it, obviously you can't say who, but is it a sharp money, or is it somebody that doesn't want to miss the train like happened with the Vegas Golden Knights this year?
No, this one here, I wouldn't not say disrespected better, but just a better that's your common better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the disrespected better angle.
A house favorite better.
If the Raiders are in the playoffs, then that person looks great.
Yes.
There you go.
And by the way, a lot of disrespected bettors ended up sitting there with big tickets in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Absolutely.
So, and disrespected bettors had nothing on it.
For sure. William, tell us about what's going on at CG.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot going on here. I mean, where do I start? You got, college football opens up on Saturday, a week from Saturday. NFL Preseason's, of course, here, and it'll be here and gone before you know it, leading up to Week 1. You have season win totals. You can bet on each division winner. Will your team make the playoffs? Of course, the conference Super Bowl winners. MLB division and wildcard races are heating up. Premier League week number 2 is upon us. So make sure you download the app and go to one of our 8 CG Sportsbooks to sign up for an account so don't get shut out on the action.
Hey, Will, jumping back, as you talked about the Premier League, and I know the ratings on TV are getting more and more. Mm-hmm. Does Premier League action match what you get in a baseball game?
It's more. It's probably 3 times more action on the Premier League, and that's amazing considering when they start. These games are average to 7 a.m. start time.
Well, nobody goes to sleep here in Las Vegas. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, that Crown and Anchor bar is packed.
Yep.
That's for sure.
By the way, very good fish and chips there.
Yes, they are.
They should for that place. Will, I want to throw in there, you mentioned about the app, and, our podcast goes nationwide, and a lot of people come to Vegas to visit, and they don't realize that you don't have to live here to use the app when you're here. You can come in, download the app, go to the CG, put your money in, and make all your wagers while you're here for your 2-3 days. Don't have to worry about standing in lines, and then just cash out before you leave. A simple process.
Absolutely, yeah. We got 8 books you can go to. The Venetian, the Palazzo, the Cosmopolitan. Palms is close to the Strip as well, Tropicana, and then if you're staying locally, Silverton, the M, and all the Hard Rock is somewhere in the middle. It's a Strip and a local place.
Yeah, if you're coming to Vegas, you got to check out a CG property. Personally, my 2 favorites would be the Venetian and the Cosmo. Those 2 books are just absolutely gorgeous.
Amazing.
Yeah, but they're all nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but those are my 2 favorites. Will, thanks for stopping by. We're going to be chatting with you off and on all season. Love to get this kind of information and, let our listeners, take that little peek behind that, the curtain that is the sports book. And, I love, that you guys are able to share information with us and, make it, more entertaining for the listeners. And, you guys get a bad rap, bookmakers in general, as the enemy, so to speak. But you guys are really nice guys. I got to say that.
Oh, yeah, and then feelings mutual. It's always a pleasure to be on, and I'm looking forward to it throughout the season as, things get somewhat crazy.
All right, good stuff, Will. Hey, we're going to step out for a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the AFC. We're going to wrap it up with the East and the South. That's up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
We're back in this week's edition of Handicappers Corner. We are going to take a look at the AFC East and AFC South. Let's start with that AFC East, guys. And, let's call it what it is. It's the AFC least because it's New England and then all the also-rans. This is like a horse race when you go in against a 1-9 favorite and everybody else is racing for second money. So, Dave, I'm going to throw it to you. Of these three teams, and I'm going to use that term loosely, who's got the best shot to emerge as the number 2 team in your opinion?
I'll say Miami. I think Buffalo's just going to have to bite the bullet this season. And the Jets...
Going to have to bite the bullet this season.
Well, the Jets, I think that you can make a case that the Jets might have a little more upside in their roster than Miami. But it's very young right now in terms of those spots. They don't have much depth. So I would give Miami an edge. But this is, to use the horse racing comparison, not only is the 1-9 probably going to win the race, he's going to lap the other 3 horses. Okay? So it's Miami by default for me to finish second, but I don't see any of these teams making the playoffs.
Ralph, you got anybody that you agree with Miami?
I actually agree with Dave that Miami will finish second, and the reason is, you look at the 3 offenses last year. They were number 25, 28, and 29. But Buffalo made the playoffs because they were plus 9 turnovers, and they won a couple close games because of that. And Miami was minus 14 turnovers. That was 29th, second worst in football, just besides the Browns. A lot of times you have those bad turnover years. You get the lucky breaks, or you get some breaks go your way the next way. And, with the team they have, I think they have the second best talent. I disagree with Dave a little bit, but I understand the youth the Jets have. So I think Miami wins, but I don't think any team gets to 500 besides the Patriots.
Well, I agree with you. Nobody else gets to 500. I'm going to go out on a limb. Miami, I think, is the safe pick for second. I think Buffalo's going to suffer a regression this year. I agree with you there. But I think the Jets, and what I like about the Jets team, they're young. They're building for the future. We heard going into last year, remember all of the talk how it was like it was going to be tanking for the Jets and they were playing for the number 1 draft pick and all that. They played hard. Those players didn't. Yep. They didn't want to do that. And this is a team, that snuck out some wins last year. They finished the season 5-11. 5 of their losses came by 7 points or less for a team that really didn't have a lot of talent, and the coaches were not really coaching hard to win the ball games. And if you look at continuity in the division, this is hard to believe. He's only in his 4th year, but Todd Bowles has the second longest tenure next to Belichick in the division. And then you've got the quarterback situation. You got the rookie that they wanted. They got what they wanted. You have 2 really good backups. I mean, one of them's going to be trade bait, most likely Teddy Bridgewater. But this is still a team that I think the upside is there. If they win a couple of those close games that they lost last year, it's a team that could get to the 6 or 7.
Marco, you said it. That was the ironic thing. People talking about the Jets wanting to tank. They wanted a tank to get Sam Darnold, and like you said, they got him anyway. Yeah. So funny how things work out.
Yeah. So, it was like the Suck for Sam campaign last year, and they got it anyway. So, Jets is mine. Let's move into the AFC South, which I think is one of the more interesting divisions, because I could sit here and make a case for all 4 teams up and down. And, obviously Jacksonville stands out from, the team because of that defense. And what they did last year, they beat the Steelers, and I think really they caught the Steelers looking ahead to New England. The Steelers are just obsessed with New England. And then they took New England to the limit. I mean, New England was lucky to win.
Yes. You can argue they should have won the game.
But here's the question, and I'll throw it to you, Dave, first. We know this defense. We know what it is, and we know how good it's going to be. Are you buying into Blake Bortles? He got the 3-year contract extension. I think he got $54 million. This is a guy that, had upside galore, but never delivered.
There was always some argument on that because there were some really sharp NFL quarterback people, ex-quarterbacks, coaches. Phil Simms comes to mind, who said, his mechanics just aren't good. And they said that from the day he came out of college. So it wasn't a unanimous verdict on Bortles by any means. And I think that maybe he was below expectations to some extent, but I don't know that it was that widespread because a lot of people didn't think he was going to be that good to begin with. He's now arrived at the point where he is getting better at managing the football game, and I think his team is starting to have a little more trust in him. As long as Bortles isn't asked to win football games, I think he can be okay.
Yeah,
and that's the key. He is not going to go out there and become Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Drew Brees. But if he can go out there and be a Trent Dilfer, and I'm not saying that in an insulting way.
Or Joe Flacco when Baltimore won.
Yeah. I mean, go out there.
Both of them were for Baltimore Super Bowls.
Make the plays you got to make, and don't turn the football over. Then he can be very serviceable for this team.
He does have to improve. He had a 21-13 ratio. You can't throw 13 interceptions with that defense.
And the one thing, look, he doesn't have the disease as bad as Jameis Winston, but Bortles has had that issue where I'm going to try and make a play even when there's no play here. Now, he did get better at that as the season went along last year, and that's part of the reason that Jacksonville was able to ride their great defense and make a run that almost got them to the Super Bowl, whereas opposed to Winston, who cannot stop trying to be a hero in every stinking play, and that's why he's never going to be any good. Until he curbs that tendency, he just won't be a good quarterback. I think Bortles has arrived at that point, and it makes me believe that Jacksonville is the team to beat in this division.
Oh, I agree they're the team to beat, and clearly they have the number one defense. But let's remember last year, Deshaun Watson got hurt. They didn't play him. Andrew Luck got hurt. They didn't play him. Yep. And so the only quarterback they faced was Marcus Mariota. So you have 4 games with backup quarterbacks. That's a big division perk, and that helps that number one defense.
But boy, that defense is good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
the defense is incredible, but I can't get out of my mind. I go back to the opening playoff game when they played Buffalo, and the game plan for that game was just don't lose this game for us. They didn't let him do anything in that game. And it almost cost them because what was it, a 10-3 final or something? It was ridiculous.
Wasn't the greatest weather day either, as I recall. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one, Jacksonville. But it was a horrible thing, and I think that's what aided the Steelers in looking past them because they saw how much they struggled against Buffalo. They couldn't score on Buffalo and move and just. I'm not sold on Blake Bortles
I'll tell you what will be tough to replicate is. They had 33 takeaways last year. That was number one in the NFL by a huge margin. It'll be tough to duplicate that many takeaways again.
One other thing, though, is that the Jaguars now have a different mindset than they've basically ever had because they've been a laughingstock franchise for a long time, and now they're not. The division itself, though, is still – this is a heck of a division.
It's all 4 teams, and we'll go to the next one that a lot of people, in my opinion, this is the one that's getting the most hype is Houston.
Sure.
Well, shouldn't they?
Everybody's looking at what Deshaun Watson did in that small capsule of games. They were scoring points. I mean, they were putting up 30s every week. The problem was the defense was not good last year.
J.J. Watt's going to be back on the field. They hope for 16 games. That's the worry I've got with this team. Can they keep their key people on the field? I'm certainly not wishing anything bad on Watson, but he does play a style of quarterback that can lead to injuries because he's going to get hit. And
do they put the reins on him some?
If you put the reins on him, then he's not Deshaun Watson anymore.
Quarterback. I think you got to let him play. I mean, I think that's what makes him so special. And you talked about J.J. Watt. Houston was number 32 last year in points per games allowed on defense. They were 20 on yards. So what happened was later, that defense was so bad because they got a lot of short fields. The backup quarterback turned the ball over. So when your best offensive player and best defensive player missed the seasons, remember, Houston was the back-to-back AFC South champion going 9-7 each of the last 2 years. So I think, you got to put him in that race immediately.
And the other thing is it's not that Watt was just their best player on defense. He's the heart and soul of that unit.
Yeah. Equivalent to Ryan Shazier for Pittsburgh. You lose a player like that.
Got to throw a Steelers guy in there.
Well, no, but it's a good comparison.
Yeah. Go to Tennessee. Here's a team makes the playoffs last year. Wins somehow. I mean, they backed their way in. And down the stretch, the whole month of November, the word was Malarkey was gone.
Right.
Okay. Then they make the playoffs. Then it still was, he's gone after they lose the first round game. And they were getting pounded in that game and made the miraculous comeback as Andy Reid does what he does so well. I got a lead. I'm going to sit on it. I'll stop attacking, and it cost them. Goes on the next week and loses at New England. They go from being fired all year to they were talking briefly about a contract extension, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're gone. They fire Malarkey.
Well, they just didn't want him to be there.
There was a personality conflict with him and the GM for sure. What do you make of this? And the biggest gripe that they had with Malarkey is they felt he wasn't developing Marcus Mariota.
Well, yeah, but you see, and this is where I think coaches.
And Malarkey was an offensive guy.
I know, but the coach can't go out on the football field and play the game. And Mariota has some of that Jameis Winston tendency, which is that he's going to try to make a play every single play. And this is one of the reasons that I was watching the Browns last week and watching Baker Mayfield. And it's like, this rookie. He's playing his first preseason game. And yet on 2 or 3 occasions, he knew enough to just throw the football away. You can't make anything. I'm going to just throw it away. Mariota, like Winston, has been in the league 3 years and still hasn't curbed that tendency to try and win the game on every play. And until he does, he'll never be what I consider to be a top-flight quarterback. He does have some abilities. There's no question about that. He's also, however, not, you know, call it straight, he doesn't make the best intermediate throws of all time. Okay? I mean, he's just not that accurate at times. I think he's going to be a serviceable quarterback, but I'm certainly not ruling out him getting to the next level, but I haven't seen that development yet. Now, I'm not saying that he has a higher ceiling than, for instance, a Blake Bortles that we just talked about. Right. But just having a high ceiling doesn't mean you achieve that high ceiling. How many guys have we seen as pitchers in Major League Baseball, and they've got this great stuff, and you can see, boy, this guy should be a superstar, and they never get there because they never put it all together. Mariota might be one of those guys.
The last team, and I think this team is the most intriguing. We've got Indianapolis. We've got Andrew Luck back. If he stays healthy, obviously the Colts are a different team, Ralph, when they've got Andrew Luck on the field and when they don't. Even with him not there last year, they were in a ton of ball games. In fact, 5 of their losses last year, they blew leads of 10 points or more. You got to figure, how many wins is Andrew Luck worth? So if he stays healthy, can this team make a run in this division? They got a coaching change, and I don't know about you guys, but I was never a Chuck Pagano fan. I felt, the best team that they had was actually the year that, unfortunately, he was sick and Bruce Arians took over the team. I think it was just, he had a lot of offensive talent, and, Andrew Luck carried him. You saw the last 2 years, whenever they had him gone for a full year and part of the other year, it's not the same team, and his coaching abilities I wasn't impressed with.
The difference with Indianapolis is Andrew Luck takes so much of the salary that they can't have a lot of good competition around him. I mean, they lack a lot of depth because he takes so much. And to look what Jacoby Brissett did coming in, he threw for 59%, a 13-7 ratio. Yes, Luck can get better than that, but this New England team was number 31 in offense, number 30 in defense. Indianapolis, the Colts team, 31 and 30.
New England was not number 31 in offense.
But it was the
defense, maybe. But
he was thinking about where he came from. He
Jacoby
came from
Brissett, I was thinking. We talked about it on Las Vegas Sports Live. Brissett at the Patriots last year. So, but they're number 32 in yards per game difference. So they just have too much ground to make up. I actually think while Luck's going to play better and they're a better team, they were plus 5 turnovers. They won a few fortunate games that even if they're a better team, they may not even match last year's win total.
Okay. I think their ceiling's higher on Indianapolis. They did draft a couple offensive linemen to protect Andrew Luck better. We'll see how that goes, and we're going to actually be talking about Indianapolis later in the show when we do the weekend previews.
I'll tell you one thing. One rookie offensive lineman can piece in. If you have two rookie offensive line starters, I think the O-line's in trouble.
Definitely at the beginning of the season. We've talked about it many times. It takes time to gel, and we'll see what happens with those teams down the road. But there you have the 2 remaining teams in the AFC divisions, I should say. Next week we'll switch over to the NFC. When we come back, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We come back, we're going to be looking at some football and baseball for the weekend. Got 3 football games we're going to preview and 1 monster baseball game for Friday night. Probably one of the biggest series of the weekend. I know somebody
is Mark nervous behind the counter for this weekend. Yeah. We'll have to wait and hear.
There's somebody at the controls that's definitely getting a little. Feels like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now with the Houston Astros. But that's going to be up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. Time to check out the weekend baseball and football action. We've got a pair of games on Friday night we're going to go with. Let's start with football. I didn't think I'd ever be saying this in preseason, but the marquee game is the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns. We kind of teased earlier with William about this one. And, obviously these are 2 teams. I'll start with you, Ralph. A lot of hype because they both took high draft picks for quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen. First week, I thought of all of the quarterbacks, Josh Allen definitely had the worst performance of the big-name quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, he moved the team, had some confidence. I liked what I saw, made some smart decisions, didn't put up big numbers, but you got
212 yards passing.
I mean, 212.
Yeah,
his
11
percentage,
to 20. Yeah, 11 to 20. Yeah.
But this is just the way he carried himself on the field was encouraging to me. And you're a Cleveland Brown fan, so you tell me.
And the important thing Dave said is, a lot of times those incompletions are very important if you throw the ball away. If you're an NFL quarterback, it's as important to make a completion as it is to know when to throw the ball away, and he did that. And that's surprising for a rookie. So, I look at this game, and normally I favor a team that's off a loss playing a team that's off a win in week 2, which would be Buffalo. But in this case, the Browns are just doing the right things. You look at Hugh Jackson now. The last year and this year combined, he's 5-0 straight up in ATS in the preseason. And I've talked about this on a couple WagerTalk preseason videos. I always will back a team that plays in units. Baker Mayfield only takes snaps with the 2s. They know he's not going to be the starter. Tyrod Taylor is the starter, clearly. No question, no talk, no discussions. So now you're going to have Taylor come in. They played 8 snaps, and he had a TD last year, 1 drive. He's going to play multiple series this year. Then you're going to bring Mayfield in with the 2s. And then you have Drew Stanton, who didn't play last week, a veteran, who now is going to come in and play as the number 3 quarterback. So I don't hold much with Tyrod Taylor playing his former team, although he certainly would like to score a touchdown against them. But the way the Browns play, the way the Browns practice as far as units go with the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, to me, that is a buy sign on playing Cleveland. And again, Hugh Jackson now 5-0 straight up in ATS in preseason action.
Dave, do you look at it in, ride the angle? Hugh Jackson, he wins preseason games, just keep going with him. It didn't help him last year for the regular season. But now you're paying a price for the Browns because of the hype.
Again, you have to make adjustments. And just to jump in, Hugh Jackson's 5-0, but his first year with the Browns, he did go 0-4 straight up in ATS.
But he did win a game that year.
Correct. And so maybe he thought he should change it because he only won a game. We'll see. But so Hugh Jackson, his first year did very poorly. Second and third year is different story.
Well, look, the Bills have their own battles going on because they haven't really settled on a first-string. I think McCarron's going to win the job, but it's not official by any means. So they've got battles going on as well. I don't want to oversell myself on the hard knocks angle, but it does appear as though there's a serious mindset, if you will, in Cleveland this year. And we saw it last week, maybe with the Callaway situation, which was definitely exposed on Hard Knocks, where he got in trouble for driving with a suspended license, and he had a trace amount of pot in the car. And he played every snap on offense last week. I mean, the message was sent that you are going to be held accountable here. I do kind of buy into that stuff. I think there is a very serious mindset about changing the culture on this football team now, not just in the regular season. And that, to me, makes the Browns either play on or leave them alone in the preseason. I think I'm probably going to leave them alone here because I'm not sure that I buy into the fact that Buffalo's just going to mail it in here. But the Browns are serious.
The Coleman trade is another situation, talking
yeah.
about how
he was yapping, blah, 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 blah. Get out of here.
Not hustling in practice. Boom, we don't want you on the team.
Marco, and they just gave him away.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you're off our team.
By the way, he's in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So now you've got Taylor. And you know, I would think that the receiver probably wants to get on the field and make a couple of nice catches tonight against his former team.
I will give you 1 point for the Bills, and that is that, you know, you talked about McCarron and Peterman both battling for the job.
Right. And Allen. Allen, I don't think he's going to win the job, but he's got a chance.
I did read this morning that both McCarron and Peterman are going to play with the ones.
Right.
So that means your ones are going to play at least the first quarter, maybe into
Sounds
the second
like
quarter. So you may have a starter's edge on Buffalo's side.
Yep.
All right, moving to baseball for Friday night. And as we're moving forward, we're going to be concentrating more on football. But this is a big one on Friday night.
Huge.
You've got the Houston Astros limping into Oakland. There's no other way to do it.
2 games.
Physically and mentally, I mean, this is a team right now. They're the defending world champs. They have got so many injuries on this team that's hurting the offense. They've had, some pitching, all year pitching's been their strong suit. They've had some games where, they had late innings, the bullpen, just, ruined a good performance by a starter. We've seen a few of those. But this is a series that if they lose 2 out of 3 in this series, it's a 1 game. They're only got a 1-game lead. But if they get swept here, and that's why the first game of this series is so important for both teams' mindset, because if Oakland wins the first game, they know that there's a chance come Sunday they're in first place. In Houston, those footsteps are going to sound even louder if they drop this first one. They got Charlie Morton on the mound. Would have rather seen someone else other than Jackson for Oakland. But Dave.
But the thing is, Edwin Jackson, I can't explain it.
Yeah.
But he's pitching
Who the hell can?
He's pitching really good ball.
When you have a big game, would he be your first choice? Second, third, fourth? I mean, but
no, just about anybody named Jackson. But Edwin Jackson, for whatever reason, has put things together this year. And I'm not saying he's pitching at a Cy Young level, but he's been a very representative starter for the A's. But Charlie Morton's also been outstanding.
Jackson in 2016 played for Miami and San Diego, a 5.89 ERA. Jackson in 2017 played for Baltimore and Washington, a 5.21 ERA. His last 3 starts, 19 1/3 innings, 11 hits, 1 earned run.
Yeah, he's pitching great. Here's the funny thing on Edwin Jackson. If you go way back in the time capsule, this was a guy who was a tremendous prospect coming up. I remember.
He's 34 now.
I understand that. I can't explain whether this is a fluke or whether something finally went on. We have seen some pitchers over the years. Doesn't happen often, but we have seen some pitchers over the years who basically took forever to develop, and then all of a sudden, just whether it was coaching or a different mindset or whatever, put things together and started living up to the hype that they had coming up as a prospect. That's the thing. People don't remember. Edwin Jackson, when he was on the way up, was one of the highest-rated prospects in baseball. Coming to the Dodgers organization, we saw him here in Las Vegas coming through, and it's like, geez. And if you saw him, it's like, wow, this guy's got a chance to be something really good. I mean, he had great stuff. He just never put it together. But he has right now. I'm not anxious to go against him. I mean, this whole Edwin Jackson is the perfect representative for the Oakland A's right now because he's the ultimate.
Every night it's somebody different.
Who the hell is this guy, and who the hell is this team? Yeah. And here they are playing just an absurd winning percentage.
What are they, 38 and 13 or something?
Yeah,
right now?
I mean it's just
Ask Joe
nuts.
Public how many guys they can name on the A's.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot, Dave. I don't know if you saw the line yet for tomorrow night.
Well, the Astros are going to be favored with Morton on the road.
How much?
I would say they're probably going to be in the 140 range.
All right, you're right on the money.
Well, I'm pretty good at making numbers, you know. Not always good at beating them, but I can make them.
My first impression, I thought, as hot as Oakland is, in the way the Astros are playing and the way Oakland's playing, when I saw the 1-4, I had to look twice. Did I read the team above me or below me? Because I thought that was a little bit high. I thought that Oakland's going to, and we'll see where the market moves in the morning, but this one surprised me a little bit. I thought 130 tops in this one.
But the thing is, Morton, and by the way, Charlie Morton is a more spectacular version of Edwin Jackson, because Charlie Morton for years and years and years never lived up to the hype and basically was on his way out of baseball. Okay? He was that close, and all of a sudden he just put everything together with Houston, started throwing 97 miles an hour, which he never threw with the Pirates.
Everyone gets good once they leave Pittsburgh.
Well, there you go. I think the price is about right in the game. If I had to play it, I'd take Oakland.
One note on Morton, 4-1 with a 2.73 ERA in his 10 road starts, and something Dave has brought up numerous times on the radio show and here on the podcast. Oakland is a different stadium in the day and at night.
Yeah, ball carries better
and I've got a
during the day.
stat to show you. In the day, Oakland is 11-13-1 over/under, basically 50%. At night at home in Oakland, they're 12-21-1, 63.6% to the under.
Balls die, unless it's Chris Davis, who hits the ball so hard that I'm surprised he hasn't hit it to Modesto or something. I mean, Chris Davis might hit the hardest home runs in baseball on a regular basis. What a year that guy's having, too.
You're putting him up with Stanton and...
Yeah, he just doesn't get the attention. But when Chris Davis, it's one of those. He's one of those guys when he makes hard contact, the ball has a different sound coming off his bat than other guys does. It has almost a Stanton-esque sound.
Well, I know I'll be tuned in watching that one tomorrow night. This is the series I'm wanting to see with Oakland. It's such a great story. If this team pulls this off, Dave?
I hope they do. Sorry, Mark.
Which version of Moneyball is this his best work with what they've done with this roster? Because
Bob
in
Melvin,
the beginning,
it's Bob Melvin's. I think Bob Melvin's the one who deserves tremendous credit. He's pushed all the right buttons all year long, and Bob Melvin is a guy who a lot of people think is a terrific manager who just has never had the material to work with in Oakland, but that he's as good a game manager as there is in the game, and he's kind of showing it this year.
I'll tell you what, for those that do believe in the A's, the market hasn't showed it as far as World Series odds. I mean, Houston's still 10-1 because they know the pitching they have and the hitting they have. Oakland, you could find 25-1 or even higher right now. So if you are buying into the A's magic, now's the time to think about buying that Super Bowl ticket.
If you want to take a flyer, because we were all along when they were at the beginning of this run and they were making it, we thought they're going for the number 2 wild card. That's what they're getting.
Right.
It is a huge difference if you get this team wins the division and leapfrogs Houston. All of a sudden you're in and you're playing a full series. You're playing a full series. I mean, you're not in that coin flip game.
You know how excited I am about this. I'm a Red Sox fan, and I mean it's possible that Houston and the Yankees could battle in a 1-game elimination. This is a Red Sox fan's dream.
Verlander. Go Verlander.
Knock out one of them. And I'll tell you what. If we do get a Houston, sorry, Mark, but if we get a Houston-Yankees wild card game, I'm going to get more guys on my side of the ledger where we don't like the 1-game wild card, where I would rather see it a best of 3.
Not me. I love it.
Yeah, I don't like it. And you're going to have two. If you have two good teams,
you can't make everyone wait.
How much is it going to?
These teams have the ability to set up their pitching staffs exactly the way they want. That's the advantage of being ahead.
If you want to avoid the 1-game penalty series,
win
your division.
Hey. 2-1, Marco. You lose.
All right. Let's go to Saturday, and here's another one where we're going to talk. San Francisco and Houston, 2 teams that didn't win a lot of games last year, but boy, is the hype machine primed and ready for these two. You got San Francisco, Jimmy G. The era begins with him. You've got Deshaun Watson coming back. You didn't see a lot of action in week 1. Being week 2 and being at home, Dave, preseason-wise, how much do you think we see of him this week?
I wouldn't think we'll see a whole lot of him. I think these 2 teams will both be more toward the dress rehearsal, the traditional dress rehearsal style of preseason, where do some evaluating the first 2 weeks, maybe get a few snaps, and do a little more game planning in Game 3. and try and get some more reps in for your first teamers. So this is one of the, and I have a lot of games that I'm considering this week, but this is one of the games I didn't consider. I just kind of lopped it off right away as one where, we'll see what happens. And to be honest, I just haven't gotten as much of the information that I want to get going into a game on this one as opposed to other games. And I'm very information dependent in the preseason. I want to get some good stuff out there that I can factor into an analysis, and I just don't have it on this game.
Ralph?
Houston's a team that last year with Deshaun Watson as a rookie, Deshaun Watson had as many attempts in preseason as both Savage and Brad Whedon did. I mean, that's clearly not going to be the case this year.
No.
But you look at San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, who is the head coach and the OC. Last year, they put up 24 points per game in preseason play. That was number 4. They went 3-1 to the over, and the only game that didn't go over was the game 4, which they didn't care about. Against Dallas week 1, they put up 454 yards and 26 first downs. So to me, it's a game that they practiced together, so you may see a different attitude as well. They had 2 days of practice. They got in a skirmish early. They worked it out. They had a good day of practice yesterday. They practiced again today, so you don't know what came of it. But a lot of times, though, when teams practice, they show very vanilla in the game because they had better workouts in practice and could see what their guys did than when you get to the game. So I lean with the over, but I'm backing off as a play because of the practice situation.
Well, if you listen to the radio show this week, earlier in the week when I was on with Dave and we were talking about an early look at the preseason games, and I talked about, generally speaking, week 2 you're going to see more points. You see it in the lines just to start with. And this is one of the games where I thought there would be more points because I thought you're going to see more of the offenses this week, and I like it over the total as well. We're going to skip Sunday. I'm not going to talk about baseball on Sunday, but it's football season. We got a Monday Night Football preseason game. Got to talk a little bit about this one because we've got probably right now the best preseason coach in football in John Harbaugh going with the Ravens. And then we've got Indianapolis. This will be the first home game, new head coach, and it's a head coach, Dave, that wasn't their first choice. No. They went down the pecking order, got turned down, had a coach lined up, ready to have a press conference.
And he decided he couldn't leave all that good clam chowder in Boston.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game, national TV for a Monday night. I'll go with you, Ralph, because I know you've been on the Harbaugh bandwagon. Do you continue to ride him, or is this a spot where there's a different situation you like better?
You know what? Since it is Monday, we don't have a lot of information, but let me tell you this. Monday night games in preseason are very unique. They're going to play a back-to-back road game going to Miami in 5 days. So Harbaugh is going to do one of 2 things. He's not going to play anyone this game because, remember, they had the Hall of Fame game, so this is their 3rd game. He's not going to play anyone this game, sit everyone, and play him in Miami, traditional week 3, their week 4. Or he's going to use this as his week 3 trial. Yep. So you can get some huge edges in this game by just following what he says. Look at what the quarterback rotation is. It's too early for that decision, but for our listeners, I'll tell you what, it's something to keep an eye on.
What Ralph said, and I got nothing to add to it. You should get an idea on the approach the Ravens are taking for this game probably by Saturday. But until you do, I mean, it's kind of pointless to speculate.
5 days and backed-to-back road games doesn't happen in the preseason.
No.
It'll be unique.
Yeah, and I think that if Baltimore does make the announcements that they're not going to, that this is going to be a throwaway week,
I have a feeling this might be the throw. I'm just guessing, but I think this might be the throwaway week.
Yeah. For me, you've got a first-year coach that wasn't the first choice. He's playing his first home game. The first home game with Andrew Luck. And last week, I was lucky enough to go to a preseason game last week in Seattle, and I saw Andrew Luck and him. They played him longer than I thought that they would play him in the first game. I thought he would be in for one series.
Trying to shake off the rust.
And now coming back home and playing on a Monday night game, a couple extra days to prepare. I think Indianapolis going in is going to want to try to win this ballgame. I think he wants to get that attitude, get the winning attitude, new coach, you want to get the momentum build up. But again, what you're saying, Ralph, makes total sense, especially, I'll be on Indianapolis big if I see the stuff.
That's what I'm hoping for. I won't play the game if the Ravens are playing their guys.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to lay off it because I think what you made just made a whole lot of sense. But I'm hoping that this is the one where Baltimore says, okay, well, we can't use these guys every game here, so we'll give them this week off. Indianapolis might kill them if that's the case. So check the information. Check your local newspapers in Baltimore and Indianapolis to get that information.
Tell you what, for those that don't know, one great resource is sportspages.com.
Yep.
You go to it, it has all the pages. It goes to regions, east, west, north, and south. It doesn't have every newspaper, but at a glance, you're going to get the majority of newspapers you need at one quick look.
It's way better than Sports Spider.
Yeah.
Which is Sports Spider.
A lot of tweets, a lot
Sports
of
Spider
offsites,
has a lot of extraneous stuff. It's not well maintained. Sorry for overruns it, but clean up your site because in the tweets column they'll have tweets that are completely unrelated to anything that has to do with the team. It's like you're not. If you don't give a damn about your site, I don't either. Sportspages.com does a much better job.
All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's the last segment. It is Best Bet time. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It's that time of the show. We have 3 best bets for you. We're going to get started with Ralph. You've got a Friday night best bet. I'll go to you first with the Houston-Oakland.
We talked about Houston and Oakland. I gave you the number on the over-unders as far as day and nights. And, this is a series that has playoff pressure. Hopefully the Oakland fans show up. I would like nothing more than to see a decent-sized crowd at Oakland this weekend. But I am going to go, it seems like an obvious play with the under, the way the pitchers are playing. But you add in the way Houston is struggling on offense, the night game at Oakland, it's going to be Houston-Oakland under the total Friday with Morton and Jackson.
Yep. Dave, you've got a football play for us.
Yeah, this is actually a play I'm selling on WagerTalk, so you don't have to buy it. If you look on WagerTalk under my menu, and you'll see whatever best total of the week or something. Well, this is it. So don't, if you want to buy it anyway, that's awesome.
There you go.
But I like the Raiders and Rams under the total. The best number on this is gone, okay? It's down to 39 now. But I would still take it under. And the reasoning is pretty simple here. These teams are playing in week 1 of the regular season. It's very unusual that you'll see teams meeting in the preseason and then meeting in the first week of the regular season. Well, what would be even more unusual is if either coach shows anything that they're going to use in the regular season game. They're meeting 3 weeks from now. So to me, this is, and we know the Rams aren't going to play anybody in the game anyway, and I would think the Raiders probably won't play their regulars a whole lot either. So I think this is a game that, barring turnovers, and you can't really handicap turnovers, especially in preseason games, but barring defensive scores or short fields, this is a 17-13 type of game, and I will take under in the Raiders-Rams game.
All right, I'm going to go Friday night as well, but I'm going to go to the baseball diamond. We got the L.A. Dodgers. They're going to make a trip up to Seattle. This one, 2 things I'm looking at here. One, you had the Dodgers come off a hard series with San Francisco. Doesn't matter what the records are when those 2 teams play. That's a big series. That's the West Coast version of the Yankees and the Red Sox. And the Dodgers just aren't playing really good baseball right now. They've got bullpen problems. And I'm looking at Wade LeBlanc. This guy, when he pitches at home, just doesn't lose. And I'm getting him as an underdog here. I'm going to go ahead and take Seattle. And they're trying, they dropped from number 2 to number 3 in the West, so they're looking up at a couple teams in front of them. They can't afford to fall much farther behind. This is a big series for them, and I'll go with their guy that's been a stud at home, Wade LeBlanc, for my best bet for Friday night. That's going to wrap up this week's show, guys. I want to thank all of our guests that joined us, of course, CG Technology Analyst William Bernanke. Also, my guys in studio, Dave Cokin, Ralph Michaels. We've got Mark Seidel behind the controls, making us all sound good. A big shout-out to Johnny Detroit. He gets our podcast up everywhere. You can listen to us on Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, and iTunes. Be sure to subscribe to iTunes, and you won't miss a single podcast. And last but not least, our listeners. Without you guys, we wouldn't have this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for this week. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Until next week, let's cash some tickets.